So it's a real different world from a pre versus post approval era of oral JAK inhibitors. And I think that we had a lot of promising phase two and phase three data to point to. But I think what started to be really lacking was number one, the long term extension arms really coming to maturity from these studies, plus really innovative phase four designs to take a look at what might be happening closer into the real world. And so we're starting to get some of those things along with just real world data evidence generation in general that is allowing us to make some general conclusions about the population that might be using oral JAK inhibitors. I'll say that some of the better data we have is coming from the extension arms of the phase three studies that we've been looking at for safety over the course of 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, even up to 5 years in the case of upadacitinib. What's coming out there is that overall, there doesn't seem to be a very clear signal for some of these boxed warning events that we think about for safety in this population, which is really reassuring given that this was one of the major concerns about this class at the point of launch. Additionally, we have some phase four studies going on that are really trying to take a look at not only the lower dose of JAK inhibitors itself, but also thinking about sort of how this maybe is going to be used compared to a biologic therapy versus other therapy as well, given that we have a lot of choices in the real world. Finally, there's registries that are starting to be built up now that are just taking into account standard of care patients who are just coming in for therapy, not really controlled for a clinical trial environment as well. These are also reflecting very similar efficacy and safety findings from what we found before. I think with oral JAK inhibitors, comfort is going to really come with two things. One, arming yourself with as much education as possible. And number two, simply time. And I think in really just a couple of years, we've accelerated that time aspect just by the sheer amount of data we've analyzed, generated, and plan to collect over the course of the next decade. I think that it's going to be a really fascinating time, but bottom line, we should feel even more comfortable than we felt before at the point of launch.